This couch is hurting my back. It's gotta go. Hey everyone, it's Tony from the Handlebar Workshops, and today we're in the garage workshop. Doing something a little different today. I'm going to be working on building a mortise chair. This is going to be a very long and very involved build. I'm going to be focused on it for the foreseeable future. I know a lot of people don't like multi-part videos. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put out a series of videos showing more the in-depth type building and what I'm doing. And then once it's all done, I'll edit it all down to a nice, fairly short video that you can watch as an overview. This is part one of the in-depth multi-part video series. If this is not what you're interested in, if the overview video is posted, please go find that one. There'll be links down below. If you're a new woodworker watching this series, please note that this is probably a upper intermediate level project. As such, you're probably going to need some pretty good tools. I don't think a circular saw and a drill will quite work here. Though if you try it, please videotape it. I'd really like to see that. That said, I've got a table saw, a jointer, drill press, bandsaw. I've got a planer back there, and a pretty good router. I've built this collection up, but some of my tools are 75, 80 years old. So check Craigslist, check eBay, and try to find tools you can afford, but that are still good tools. So as you acquire the tools, make sure you use them so you build your skills as you build your collection. I found a picture of a mortise chair that I really liked, but it was such an odd design that there were no plans that I could find. There are odd angles with the legs and swoopy bits, and they didn't match any of the plans that I could find. So I decided to create my own plans. Threw it here into SketchUp and played around with some of the dimensions that I pulled from the free plans that I did find, and came up with something that's pretty close to the picture that I saw. I had to figure out the taper of the legs and the rake of the legs so that they looked proper. Fortunately, the insides here are plumb, so that makes things a lot easier. Another area where the detail drawing came in helpful was the back slats. I needed to figure out if I can get decent tenons out of the curved wood, because I plan on doing bent wood laminations here. As you can see, it came out pretty well. There's just a little bit on the back corner here where it cuts off a bit from that curve. But there's plenty of room, I think, for glue and pins. But once I was happy with the plans, it was time to move on out to the garage. So, in preparation for this build, I got some new tools that needed to be tuned up. And I had some jigs to build. This angle jig will ensure that all of my angled cuts are cut at the same angle. Then I could start drawing out the templates. The templates are very important here with all the swoopy bits and the weird angles that I'm dealing with. Accurate templates made with the cheap plywood will, hopefully, make everything go smoother with the expensive wood. Now I need to cut out the leg templates. I use a sled to taper the legs at the correct angle. Using a chisel mark on the lines helps me line the cut up exactly. So now that my leg patterns are finished, I can start laying out the sides of the chair as shown in my SketchUp drawing here. I put a piece of wood over on the side of the fence over here and butted the front of the front leg up against that. And from the back of the back leg, I measured over here the distance indicated on my SketchUp and marked the line on a piece of tape. I then lined up the front of my back leg as per where the SketchUp diagram shows. And now I can draw the pattern for the bottom side piece. First, I'm going to mark out where the mortises go. So using a caliper, I went 1/4 inch above and below each mortise. And then I'm going to be using this thin piece of 2x4 to mark our curve. So all these nails are set to the thickness of this board, away from that 1/4 inch mark. I've already laid this one out. You can see it gives me a nice curve. I also marked some lines that are perpendicular to the line of the leg here, so I can kind of judge what I want there. So now I'll trace it out. So now to lay out the bottom part, I'm just going to take this and try putting pressure at different parts of the board to see what I like. I think I like it back here better. So once I find where I like it, take the nail, and put a mark there. There, and I have my lower bottom side piece. Now we got to work on the top piece. Now with the leg patterns laid out the same way they were when I did the bottom piece, I can mark the top piece as well. I'm not exactly sure where the arm is going to fall at on these, so I'm going to cut these a little long, a little wide, in order to accommodate any kind of difference there. Set to 1/4 inch, I'm going to mark off my mortises here. So just like before, I put 2 nails just a bit above where the tenon shoulders would come to on the side, and I'm using the same piece of wood to get my curve. Staying just a bit to the waist side of the line, I cut the templates out on the bandsaw. Then I use a 4-in-hand rasp to remove the waste to the line that I traced. I tried using a belt sander to do that, but I couldn't quite get the curves right, nor could it do the inside curves on the bottom piece, so I just did it all with the rasp. To lay out the templates for the front and back stretchers, I used a similar technique. I was able to use the lower mortises in the leg templates, since the mortises in the leg for the front stretcher will be the same height as the mortise for the side piece on the front leg. And similarly for the back leg. I used the same leg template on each side of the front and back stretcher templates to mark the tenon height and width. Alright, now that I've got the template for the front and the back stretcher cut out with the tenons cut into the sides, I'm going to cut the curve here. I could use the wood like I used in the past, but this time I'm using a metal yardstick just for variety's sake. So just like the last time, I just traced the yardstick. Then I already have it set up for the next one. I just pull that one out and put the back stretcher in. Then I cut the templates out on the bandsaw and clean them up with a 4-in-hand rasp. Patterns are complete, and we're about ready to start using them on some real wood. A couple things I want to point out here is that some of these curves aren't exactly the way I drew them in the SketchUp file, or even the way I drew them on the boards themselves. What really matters is that we have a nice smooth curve on all of these here, so when we take the router with the pattern forming bit, it follows right along and makes the final piece look nice. I glued up some pieces of 2x4 to create a couple practice legs. I milled them the same way I planned on milling the actual legs. And then practice cutting the rake angles and using the router to make the mortises. What happens to all of us sooner or later, eventually we'll make a mistake. And granted, there are ways woodworkers can correct those mistakes. When you're making templates that need to be exact, I just decided to start over. Like with this, I cut the back leg mortise too low on the template. So that messed up both the top side and the bottom side template as well. So I just had to recut everything. It happens, you got to deal with it. Also, another problem I had was I ended up cutting out the mortises on a practice piece, and you can kind of see how well that didn't work. I laid these out too thin, but I'm glad I did it on a practice piece and not on an expensive piece of walnut. So now I won't make that mistake again. So remember, when you're doing something you've never done before, or you're going to be working on some very expensive wood that you don't want to mess up, practice. Well, I think that's going to be the end of part 1 here. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to stick around and see part 2, if it hasn't been released yet, make sure you hit subscribe so you see when we do release it. Remember, there's the overview video that, if it hasn't been released already, will be coming soon as well. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. By the way, since the design is not my own, I don't feel comfortable giving out my plans.